Hey, Flames fans, it is time for Flames Unfiltered, hosted by Brad Burud, Kyle Lewis. We're here talking Flames every single week. And this week, Kyle, is another one of ours where it's like, there was a few positives, but it's kind of been a grind lately, hasn't it?
Yeah, very much so. I kind of like feel at this point that that murky middle, we keep hearing that phrase, which I kind of hate, but it's very accurate. I don't know. Like, what more can you say? It's been, it's just every game. It's like, you're still right there. You won't gain any ground ever, but you're still right there.
I know. I look at the standings every night before I go to bed, and it's just like, here we go. It's been a weird season. It's been a season where, you know what? I don't think most of us really thought we were going to be in a position where we were a point back or a point ahead. You know, I thought we were going to be maybe like 6 or 8 points back, right? I didn't think we were going to be like bad, but I thought we were going to be like 6 or 8 points back. And I don't know. It's been a weird year in the NHL. I saw this graphic the other day that said, if I would have told you at the beginning of the season that Brad Marchand would be playing for the Florida Panthers, if Ovechkin would break his leg and then potentially be able to still catch Wayne Gretzky, Rand would be traded twice, McDavid and Matthews would have not bad years, but off years at the same time, the Four Nations would be as popular as the Stanley Cup, and multiple goalies would score this year, and Elias Pettersson would be almost a ghost out there. We'd all think we were crazy, right? And that's where we're at. This has been one of those years, and it's kind of been one of those years like that in Calgary too.
Yeah, and there's another layer to those stories too. Like even Tristan Zary going down to the AHL, coming back and seemingly trying to will the Pittsburgh Penguins into the playoffs, as unlikely as it is. Even now, Montreal is right there as well. I don't think a lot of people had that on their bingo card either.
I did not. I didn't.
Yeah, and there's always lots of compelling storylines, and nothing ever goes the way you think it will. Same as what we said last week during our trade deadline show about, these teams that load up, the one or two of them are going to get bounced in the first round. That's just hockey, right? But it's interesting, like from a Flames perspective, because and I want to bring something up. I'm going to dive right into this because it came up quite a few times on X. Greg Millen's comment the other night about they showed the graphic with Wolf and Vladar and their numbers, and how it's a big reason why the Flames are in contention. There's a lot of other reasons, but this is a big reason why. It's like, or however he worded it, there's not a lot of other reasons at all, to be quite honest. There's very, very few reasons, and the only one is goaltending.
For sure. We've had a couple kind of good stories, but yeah, I mean, it's been 98% goaltending. I think, we've had, as far as, happy with
Cgy and Huberdeau, been really good this year.
Cgy and Huberdeau. I think we're happy with Kevin Ball.
Braden Ball.
I think Braden Bahal's still a good story. Joel Hanley's been a good story, but outside of that, I don't know. I have some concerns. As much as I would have probably added Matthew Coronado to that conversation a month ago, he's been a ghost lately, and that's concerning for me. Martin Pospisil is, I don't even consider, and I want to get your take on this. I don't really consider Martin Pospisil this year as a concern. I think what we've found this year with him is we've actually learned where he should fit and what he is. Am I wrong on that?
No, I don't think so. He's extremely versatile, which is one of the biggest compliments you can pay a professional hockey player, I think. But we've certainly determined he's not a top 6 winger by any stretch. No, he can do it in spot duty.
He's a really good 3rd, 4th line right wing, though. That's gonna really help those lines, I think. And if that's what he is, then I'm fine with that, right? I'm fine with that. Yep. You need a good 3rd and 4th line winger too. So I think we've learned a little bit about him this year.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of a good segue into the other issue, because you just highlighted it by saying how important it is to have guys on those lines that are effective, and Pospisil being one of them. In a season where I'm not, I don't have any issue with Ryan Lomberg's play for the most part, but We talked at length about Kevin Rooney and his failures on the fourth line, and the neutral zone giveaways that just seem to happen every single game. It's like he stops skating or he just gives up on the puck. Like it's different, especially like again, we talked in the trade deadline show about bringing in maybe a fourth line piece. We both hoped we would do that. I'm sure the whole base hoped we would do that. So it's hard to overstate how important that role is, especially in a playoff race or in a playoff round. So if we had another one of him, we probably would be comfortably in a playoff spot, but we don't.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think there's been some really good stories in Calgary, but I would agree with you completely that Dustin Wolf is in his last few starts. Dan Vladar's stole some points for us too, but I mean this team has been on their back on Wolf's back this year, and I think going out of this year, if we don't make the playoffs, we still need to be happy as Flames fans because I feel like the goaltending thing that we all thought Wolf would work out, and all wanted that very, very badly, but it could have easily went the other way, just as easily, right? I mean, how many goalies that are highly touted struggle when they get to the NHL, and I think we need to be ecstatic because I think we found one that's going to stick and be a solid goaltender for years to come.
I don't think there's any question about that. You're seeing more and more people throwing it out there to just give them an 8-year deal and things of that nature. It's funny though, when you don't pay attention to certain markets, or other people don't pay attention to the one that you're paying attention to, you see a lot of funny comments that there's this, I can't remember the name of the account, it's not even worth mentioning, but somebody in Habs land just trying to undermine Dustin Wolf and trying to find stats to support his theory that he's not that good, all because he thinks Lane Hudson should win the Calder. Lane Hudson has a very good case to do so. But you really have to watch the fire drill that is the Calgary Flames defensive zone coverage a lot of nights to appreciate how good Wolf is. To me, there shouldn't be any debate. I mean, yeah, Hudson's a great talent, but Wolf is single-handedly carrying this team to possibly a playoff spot. And what's happened now is that I think the entire fan base has to embrace the idea of making the playoffs this season, at least, because Wolf is too good for them to slip into getting a pick high enough to satisfy them. You know what I mean?
I agree.
There's no other way to look at it because he's not just going to start allowing 4, 5, 6 goals a game. And that's the only way that this, they're going to eke out a couple more 1-0 or 2-1 or 3-1 wins.
Mm-hmm.
And it scares me to think they're going to land just outside the playoffs because at this current juncture, I feel like that may be what happens. But they're not going to bottom out. He's too good. It's that simple.
Yeah, I would agree completely. I think we're gonna stay right where we're at, and continue to just hang on that outside. And like today, as I pull up the standings here, the Calgary's just standing on the outside, and that we're 2 points back of Vancouver now. Vancouver's been on a little bit of a roll lately, winning a few in a row. Including a victory over us. Since we last talked, the Flames have beat Montreal 1-0, have lost to Vancouver in a shootout 4-3, which I'm very frustrated about that game, and I'd like to talk about that here shortly. And then 2 nights ago, as we record on a Sunday morning here, Colorado kind of took it to Calgary 4-2. So that puts us 2 points back of Vancouver. We do have a game in hand, but this is the most concerning part for me is we're in a 4-team race with Vancouver, St. Louis, Utah, and of course us. But the problem is I looked at the head-to-heads that we've had against those 3 other teams, right? It's concerning. We beat Vancouver to start the year 6-5 with an OT win. We lost 3-1. We won 3-1 and then lost in overtime 4-3. So in our season series with Vancouver, which is done this year, we've gained 5 points. They've gained 5 points. St. Louis, the story is not real good at all. We lost 4-3 in overtime. We lost 2-1. We lost 4-1. So we've picked up 1 point. St. Louis has picked up 6.
Yeah.
Utah, we've lost 5-1 and lost 5-3. We've got 0 points. Utah's got 4. We have 1 more game against them on April 1st. That's not a really good track record to make the playoffs when you're not beating the teams that you're fighting for those spots with. And the sad part is we've pretty much. And we only have one game left against those teams, so it's put the Flames in a difficult position.
Well, and the problem is, and this is where you almost feel like it's, I hate to say predetermined, it's not like a conspiracy theorist, but it almost feels that way because every goddamn one of these games turns into a 3-point game. And I'm not convinced it's just because it's a tight game, and in some cases, sure, but it's like, for God's sakes, like, you just know what's going to happen.
Oh, I know.
And it's so frustrating because you have an opportunity to make a statement and actually build a little bit of a gap, and nobody can seem to do it. So the other thing that's going on right now with the Vancouver Canucks is Elias Pettersson has apparently figured out how to play hockey at a high level again, because I think he's got 4 goals in 5 games. So that only took him 60 games to get his shit together. But anyway, good for him.
More because he was garbage the second half of last season. So
yeah, that's a good point. It's I'm trying to stay positive here, but it's just so frustrating because you see these games that they should be winning, and you see games like what happened with the Avalanche. I hate to say this, especially as I devalue his game-worn jersey hanging in my basement, but we should not see Mirmanov in another game this year after that effort on that Parker Kelly goal. It's like he fell asleep at center ice. Like, it just, I don't know what happened there. It was atrocious.
So I want to talk about that too. Well, go ahead.
Just before you jump into that, I do want to say, before I come down any harder on him, Kevin Rooney's been doing this virtually all season with no consequences. So I don't know what to, I mean, Mirmanov played forward for years, so at this point I'm willing to try that out. But there needs to be consequences for these guys. So you talk about guys like Bahal and Ball, Kadri, Huberdeau, obviously Wolf, guys that have had solid seasons or really good seasons, and Coronado for the most part. Now it's evident the guys that we just got to cut bait. And that's Mirmanov playing D, I think. Far more so Kevin Rooney at forward.
I'm a little bit worn on the Jake Bean experience.
He's been okay, but I don't support keeping him in the lineup over giving Jeremy Poirier or something like that a shot.
So let me ask you this question. Here's how I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on this, but this is how I was judge it. Is he part of our future success? No. Bye. I don't know, man. I'm just kind of ruthless on this, like, because like, you're either going to go all in with the young or you're not, right? And I'm not saying we need to bring up a bunch of youth right now, but I'm not going to lie to you. When I see Dryden Hunt's name on the list of recalls, and I'm sorry, I'm tired of seeing Adam Klapka get recalled. Like, I'm willing to try some other routes, right? I know those two guys. I know what I'm going to get for those guys, and they're safe.
This is exactly, I'm so glad you said this, because this is exactly what I've been saying. So you knew right away. I said the other day, I think it said Trevor Neufeld on X, I was like, I expected that Cairns would get a recall again in light of the Backlund injury. Of course, that didn't happen. And they go back to the well with the same stuff every time. So Dryden Hunt, who's having a great year in the American League, but Dryden Hunt's been playing pro hockey for how long? We know what he is. And he's not, I know
exactly what he's going to do. I know exactly what I'm going to get. He's never going to screw up bad enough, for me to throw my remote at the TV set, but I'm never going to jump out of my seat and go, wow, did you see that goal or anything like that, even close to that. Right. And so I'm sitting here and I'm looking at some of the other youth down, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is a bad example right now because he hasn't had like an off the page year, but I'm just going to use it for an example. Is I watched Sam Honzek get all this press to start the season, right? He comes up, plays a few games, kind of disappoints, and then now he's like, nobody even mentions or even breathes a word of him coming back up, right? Like, seriously, I think there's much greater upside with Sam Honzek than I see with Dryden Hunt. And I'm not ripping on Dryden Hunt. I've spoke on this podcast many times that a safe player, right? But right now I don't need safe players. We're building a team for the future, right? Like, if anybody thinks we're winning the Stanley Cup this year, I'm sorry. I don't believe that's happening.
I don't think anybody believes that, first of all.
I mean, like, come on. Like, let's do this. Like, let's maybe we can get one of those guys to pop up and stick and be part of the future, right? But we gotta put him in those positions. We gotta put him in those positions.
Stromgren's another one.
Yes, and I talked about him, I believe, on the last show or the show before that. Like, it's time. Like, what's the worst that can happen, right? Like, is it going to be a Rooney turnover? Like, I mean, we see we're putting Mirmanov in and he's turning it over and having troubles. Like, what's the difference if someone's doing it in a different jersey, right?
It's funny. Like, And this is a question, and I don't know if you have any insight into this, and I'm trying to come up with some. Double standards. So I'll use an example from my past. Like I used to work with a guy who was just the nicest guy, but he was terrible at his job. And being such a nice guy, I bought him so much time, but it just was never, it was just never working well. He was incredibly disorganized. It was just a mess, right? So in the case of Tyson Barrie, who we've pretty well collectively agree his NHL career is likely over. He's been banished to the AHL emphatically. Why is there a double standard? Because Barrie is obviously not as fleet of foot anymore and a defensive liability. Yet Kevin Rooney can cough the puck up night after night after night, and he still gets rolled out. And I don't want to hear because there's no other options, because we just listed other options, right? Derek Ryan, a few months ago on waivers, was another option.
Derek Ryan was an option that I thought we would take, and didn't. And I'm really shocked because at the time that he went on waivers, we were at really like a real teetering point for playoffs, right? And it was perfect timing for him to come step in. And I know exactly what I'm getting from Derek Ryan, right? He is, to me, he's a fourth line center on a really good hockey team, right? I mean, you know exactly what you're getting, and you can trust him each and every night. And I don't know, but I've seen so many situations, and let's go back to Wednesday night against Vancouver, where this team can play well, and then they just get caved. And we saw it in the third period when Vancouver outshoots them 17-4. And this team, I'm gonna say it. I feel like this team's out of shape, and I worry a lot about, is this a country club atmosphere where our guys are not? I don't know.
I'm not sure either. I certainly don't think they were as in good a shape as they were a few years ago under Sutter. I think we can all recognize that because his teams are incredibly fit. Now, the atmosphere you're describing, one of the things that I didn't realize until, I mean, really right now, that it kind of bothers me, but this talk of like the core six, or, you know, like, so Kadri, Huberdeau, Coleman, Backlund, Weegar, and Anderson. I don't like that talk because we're seeing it in the coaching. So, and this goes back to the Vancouver game and several others of late. I understand that Huberdeau is having a very good year. Kadri is as well. He's a highlight goal machine.
Yes, he's really been really good.
But the personnel usage, especially in overtime and the shootout, has been absolutely horrendous, and it's costing us points, and it has to stop. It has to stop. So we had the game against Dallas where I talked about this before, ran Kadri and Huberdeau into the ground, even though Joel Farabee had maybe the best game of his NHL career. I didn't see all his Philly games, but it's like, that guy should have been playing. He should have been in the shootout, and then he throws Sharangovich in these shootouts. And Sharangovich has been, I don't care that, Backlund, certain Zary suspended. Sharangovich should be a healthy scratch. He's contributing nothing at both ends of the ice, and I mean nothing. Go play with your Lego until you figure it out. Like, I'm over that. And he should not be given any opportunity in something like overtime or a shootout, because he just doesn't contribute. I understand he's very skilled and has a wicked shot, but he has to earn, a regular shift to get back to that point, in my mind anyway.
There was a point in the I'm going to interrupt 1 second.
Yeah.
You get back on course. There was a point in the Colorado game with Sharangovich where he had a shot just on the right side of the slot, and he passed up the shot. And I'm like, this is the only reason we really want this guy is for his shot. And I don't know if you remember that play, but it was just glaring that it's like, all right, that's a shot. You got a shot. And he dished it off. And of course the dish off was stolen. And it's like, the play just stops with him. It just stops with him.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and that's exactly it. And there's a happy medium in coaching, at least in my mind, and forgive me, because I haven't coached in any meaningful way. I know lots of people that have, but there's a happy medium between running certain guys into the ground by being overly reliant on them. Because let's be honest, Kadri and Huberdeau, they're not a McDavid, they're not a McKinnon, they're not a Crosby, they're not a world-breaking player that you can repeatedly throw on the ice. And even then, you have to be careful how you manage those guys. But there's a happy medium between that and, as you often mention or reference, the Jeff Ward days, where it's just lines in a blender all the time. And it doesn't work, and it's got to stop. And it's like, okay, if you actually want to make the playoffs, you need to stop applauding effort when they're losing games, because in some cases, absolutely, it's a tight game. We got goal lead, we got whatever. But it seems like every loss, we're hearing some of that, and we're hearing excuses. And those two guys we brought in from Philadelphia are very skilled hockey players. Again, I don't think we have any superstars other than Dustin Wolf, but we have enough guys that can score that we should not be the lowest scoring team in the league. It makes no sense to me.
I agree. I think they're being held back offensively, and I hate to say this, like nobody questioned Huska at all up until this year, and I've started to see in the last month some questions, and you know, I always look when the lines go in a blender, and we've seen that with Huska lately too. When the lines go in a blender, to me, that is coaches searching for desperation. And you know what? I can take these lines of our offense right now, and I can put them in a blender and shoot them out anyway, and we're still not a good team.
Yeah.
It just is what it is right now. And I'm not trying to be negative, and I'm not saying that we still can't push and sneak into the playoffs here. And I want that. But all I'm saying is and you've touched on this great in this episode, is that we have found out now. We know where our spots that need to be changed are. We know them. They're glaring. My concern is I don't know that our coaching staff knows those same spots.
Well, that's exactly it. And you're seeing, again, the rhetoric, the narrative amongst the Flames fan base on X and elsewhere. They're starting to turn on the coach because it's becoming evident to most people, evidently not Greg Millen at this point, but the Flames are only are in a playoff race because of their goaltending. They are not defensive stalwarts. So you look at any metric, it'll show you that. Now, but and this is the other piece. So what we've described, both of us so far, it very much, you know, it's very indicative of what the problems are. I think most of the people that watch this team are on the same page as we are. But then you do things like you take, and I want to talk about this with you as well, you take Braden Paul out of the lineup. Of all the guys you could take out of the lineup, unless he's banged up, which maybe he is because he plays a physical style, he gets sat when you're trying to win hockey games, and he's the guy that's smart positionally, that blocks shots, it's physical, that can make a momentum-changing hit, and he's the one that gets sat. I'm like, what is going on here?
I know. I looked at the lineup for Colorado, and all I thought was he damn well better be nicked up.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not just saying that. I don't think Kyle is just because we're Braden Pahal fans. I think there's a lot of fans, and we see it on X. I think there's a lot of fans that have been super happy with his play this year. And I agree. When I see him out of the lineup, I'm just like,
well,
Miromanov and Jake Bean as a pairing? Holy crap.
Yeah, well, that's what and again, alternatively, it's like, and people are starting to clamor for this too. Why has Poirier not been given a look yet, right? Solovoyev had a chance because Netsov, I don't think, has quite some time now anyway. Yeah, I think he got recalled once and he got sent back. That's right.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand what the thinking is behind a lot of that, and it gets, as the games get more important, it becomes really frustrating. So tomorrow night, obviously Flames are in Toronto. I'll be at that game. Zary's still suspended. Backlund's week to week. So on forward, we're likely going to be very thin again. And you know as well as I do, they're going to roll out probably Klapka and Hunt. And the only thing that might...
We have 6 fourth-line players on our roster right now. We have Klapka, Pospisil, Lomberg, Rooney, Hunt. I mean, Sharankovic shouldn't be out there. Like, you can't hide all those guys. That's too many to hide, right?
Well, that's it. And there's a couple things that might help us. I mean, well, maybe 3. I'll throw out one as a possibility. The Flames haven't lost when I've been in attendance this year, so hopefully that continues.
Do we need to sort of GoFundMe and get you moving around the road?
Yeah, but more importantly, and more true to the fact, is Dustin Wolf, who I presume will get the start, or if Vladar does, he's going to have to stand on his head. It's going to come down to goaltending and the fact that the Leafs are on a bit of a skid right now and have not played well. Mm-hmm. So outside of that, I could see the Flames getting absolutely dummied in Toronto and crawling out of that building. So hopefully that's not the case, but they're not. The way that the coach, to come back to the point here, coaching is not doing them any favors. In fact, it's hurting their chances tremendously in the last few games. And I've been giving him a pass later because I love his attitude and I like the way he communicates with his players. But there comes a point where it's like, you're not coaching this team well at all lately. Mm-hmm. And we need to stop giving credit where it isn't due. Give credit to the goaltenders and to guys like Pahal who've played consistently all year. But this is not a good hockey team, and they're not going to get any better with terrible personnel choices. So
no, personnel choices are key, and right now it's really key when Connor Zary gets 2 games suspension for elbowing, and I want to get your take on.
Given his lack of history, I was a little surprised at 2 games. And also because it wasn't, nothing was really made of it when it happened in terms of the penalty call.
There was no call. I mean, there was a call for interference.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So 2 games when you watch it back, I also see like, yeah, that was incredibly stupid. Like he chicken winged him big time. Like it was just a dumb play. I don't know what the hell he was thinking. Like maybe he's been reading too much of that Canada elbows up thing that's been going on in politics lately because he had his elbow way up, and it's like, man, you can't do that. And obviously, I'm disappointed because going into the game in Toronto, like Zary is a guy that is quite reliable at both ends of the ice. And we desperately need him. So it was a dumb play. I thought a game would have been sufficient despite the fact it was an egregious move, but it's 2 games and it is what it is. What was your take on it?
Honestly, I didn't even know it was. I didn't when I watched it live. Like, I didn't see the elbow. And maybe that's bad on me, but I didn't see it. I did see the replay later when people started talking about like a hearing. I'm like, what? And like, so I watched it and I'm just like, oh yeah, that was a dumb play. He went right to the head. I heard people describe it as he went for his shoulders and it rode up. No, it didn't ride up. It was right to the head. It was a needless, dumb play. And what I would describe it is, I think it's a classic. Connor Zary's come back from his injury and he's been, I don't know, mediocre at best, right?
Well, they sheltered him a lot too. Like, you had that 2-goal game.
Right out of the gate, he'd had a 2-goal game. But he's been mirrored on the 4th line, which really to me makes no sense. But then he's been playing shifts with the other lines, which to me doesn't create continuity. But that goes back to the coaching thing that we just talked about. But I thought though that he just looks frustrated a little bit, and I think he just thought, geez, I need to be part of the game here and protect Kadri, and just made a poor decision on how to get back and do that, and I thought 2 games was maybe a little stiff. I thought it was going to be a single game, but all in all, just kind of dumb.
Yeah. As much as I hate it, I would prefer like Lomberg or somebody to challenge the guy to a fight. As much as I think that's stupid, I'd rather that than a dumb, reckless penalty where you could have injured somebody. And that's what it was. I mean, Zary's still young. I appreciate the spirit of what he did in terms of protecting his teammate, like you're saying, but overall, just a stupid play. And obviously, I think 2 games I think it's an important lesson for him. Somebody else had said that too on X. So I don't think we'll see him suspended again anytime soon.
No, I don't think so either. I hope it doesn't. I mean, I still want him to be a physical player. I always worry about that when people get suspended. I know we talked about that lots when Pospisil was having his issues, and I'm like, man, if he goes away from his style of game, he's going to go right out of the NHL. But to make matters worse with Zary's suspension, is our captain Michael Backlund goes down with an upper body injury, and he's listed as week to week. And for a guy who played 328 straight games. It's funny, I didn't even know that because his early career he was actually criticized. Remember when he was criticized for being easily injured and weak in his first few years in the National Hockey League? Then he fires off the second longest Ironman streak for the Flames at 328 games before he goes down with this injury. And I don't know, when they say week to week, I kind of worry about this one. I don't know. I think there's a little bit more to this, and I feel like it's going to be a little longer than we want as Flames fans.
Well, week to week is always a concerning amount of time because it's so indeterminate and it can mean a lot of different things. So I don't really know what happened. I mean, his play had dropped off so much of late. I thought he had something kind of nagging, and then the play where he allegedly got hurt, I don't really see what would have injured him there unless he somehow aggravated something. So I don't know. I mean, the team's got to figure it out in his absence, and unfortunately, they don't have the personnel really to figure much out because he is very important, right?
Well, our team is horrid on center depth to start, and then you lose Backlund, and then Connor Zary goes out, which he can fill in at center. But I sit and I look, like Backlund got a lot of criticism, and I will say I haven't been really enamored with this game this year either. But he does so many things I don't think we notice, that I think we're really that we're really gonna see and miss that while he's gone now.
Well, and a banged up or subpar Michael Backlund's a hell of a lot better than some of the other options, right?
Yeah.
His ability to win faceoffs, his ability to shield the puck and control the play down low to some extent. I mean, those are all things that we have other players who do none of that. So hopefully it's more like a week, and change instead of 3-4 weeks or the rest of the season, because that's about what's left anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, this
4 or
team,
5, I guess.
What have we played? We've played how many games this year? We're at 65 games. So yeah.
Isn't that crazy? 17 games left.
Isn't that? Yeah, it is. It's going fast.
Wow. Scary.
So I got a question. We're going to talk about the playoffs here for 1 second, and then I got to get your take on a couple things. We currently sit 2 points back of Vancouver, right?
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis is tied with us, and Utah's 2 back at 69. Where do you see this working out?
Well, it's funny because I was very critical of Rick Tocchet the other day, and I still will be, because I think some of his comments are dumb and his coaching style is somewhat archaic. But a hot Elias Pettersson is bad news for the rest of the West.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to matter much in the playoffs, because the Canucks just don't have the depth to hang with the Colorados and Dallases of the world.
And he has a tendency to be a ghost in the playoffs because he doesn't like physical play. So,
well, which, from what I understand, is why there was so much tension between him and JT Miller. But regardless, I think it's going to be enough that if it comes down to Vancouver or Calgary, it's going to be Vancouver that takes that playoff spot. Because I just don't. There's nothing. Other than Dustin Wolf, there's nothing about, like, it's not like Rasmus Anderson all of a sudden is playing significantly better. It's not like Morgan Frost is on a heater. Like there's too many things working against the Flames and the unwillingness to change things. So, for example, like, I'd love to see a line of Farabee, Frost, and Zary.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be very effective in all 3 zones and with quite a bit of skill too. So until they change things up, I think it's going to be Vancouver. I don't think Utah has the horses to do much more than what they're doing now. St. Louis, they're a bit more of a wild card to me. I mean, if Binnington goes off like he did in the final of the 4 Nations, I mean, I'd give the spot to them. But all things considered, I'd be saying Vancouver's going to take that spot. And it kills me to say that, but that's how I see it playing out. What about you?
I think it's almost like flip a coin right now. I think they all have about a 25% chance. I do. I think that. And I think right now I would say Vancouver's probably has the upper hand just because of where they're sitting, and Pettersson's getting a little bit hot. But boy, St. Louis is on a tear. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10, and that team's coming on, and they're probably the hottest team right now of the 4.
Yeah.
And that scares me too. So we'll see what happens.
Well, the funny thing is, and again, we've been talking at length about the Flames' complete inability to put together a meaningful win streak since the season started. Look at Ottawa in the East. All of a sudden, they have like a 5-point cushion because they've been playing their asses off and they've won 5 or 6 in a row, right? And Montreal is the best team since the 4 Nations break. Like, if you don't win a few games in a row, it's going to be the same stuff every morning. We're going to check the scoreboard. I had a dream last night that Vancouver won. I was already asleep. And I woke up this morning under the assumption that they did, because unless Spencer Knight was in goal and he stood on his head like he did in his first game as a Blackhawk, like, you just knew, right? They're a terrible, terrible hockey team. Connor Bedard got himself thrown out again, 2 games in a row.
I turned it off last night because it was frustrating as a Flames fan to watch, and it's just like, I don't know, that I think we're kind of diving off the Flame stuff here, but like, you talk about Connor Bedard getting tossed twice, right?
Yeah.
That's a very, very, very frustrated player. Yeah. And with the way our draft system is, we keep putting the elite talent on the most frustrating situations ever.
Oh, terrible. Celebrating in San Jose like that. It makes you think.
I love my theory. I love my theory, and the Flames would be freaking awesome if we worked my draft theory. I think the first team out of the playoffs gets number 1 pick.
That's interesting. Well, what they're doing now, I mean, look how many picks the Oilers had over the years, right? I mean,
yeah.
It really makes you put a lot of faith in the tanking theory. Now, I understand tanking is a consequence of rebuilding in a lot of cases, but like the way they construct some of these teams, it's like you're going to be awful. And then you have teams like the Flames that plug those holes with guys like Jake Bean and a handful of others, which they try to do until their prospects are ready. But realistically, the prospects should probably be playing so that they can develop into better NHLers without rushing them. Like, it's a balancing act, right?
Yep. I think we've talked at length about, hey, like when Kyle and I say we want Stromgren to get a look or you know a Poirier or whatever, we're not rushing them. Look at the age on Poirier. He needs to be tested now so we know what we have, or we're gonna have to cut bait because he's not young anymore.
Well, and that's the thing. And for him, it's going to be frustrating. It's like, you know, Kuznetsov and Solovoyov get recalled. One doesn't play, one barely plays. He can't even get a look. And it's like, and you said this very well, very simply earlier in this show. It's like they got to do something different because this is not working. Recalling Dryden Hunt 6 times a season does not work. It doesn't work. And this is why the team is consistently mediocre, is because they do stupid stuff like that. I understand these guys have utility. They can play in a pinch. They're harmless when you put them on the ice in terms of hurting their own team. But ultimately, you cannot continue to do that because you're just feeding this mediocre machine this season over season. And you're always going to be mediocre because as soon as you move on from certain players and even go into a rebuild, you wind up with a goal like Dustin Wolf, who's too damn good anyway. So what do you do?
We gotta get move quick. We gotta get these young guys going because Dustin Wolf, I know he's only in his first year, but like he's an elite goalie. We need to take advantage of that. And I don't know. And another question I wanted to ask you too is, like, we're a week removed from NHL trade deadline, and the Flames did absolutely nothing, which did not upset me, but did upset some of our fan base. And I wanted to get your take, and that brings us to the X factor. Joshua writes, sell your valuable veterans, sell your expiring depth players, use your cap space to facilitate trades, acquire scoring help. Craig Conroy masterclass. And one of the reasons I picked this is because I think for the most part, the Flames fan base has been really happy with what Craig Conroy has done. And I still have. And believe me, our trade deadline did not change that.
Yeah.
I do have to agree a little bit though, on the fact that, like, if for the right haul, we would have moved an Mtl Cgy, I would have been happy.
Yeah.
If we would have facilitated a trade to maximize our cap space, I would have been happy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the acquire scoring help, I think that's kind of maybe a pipe dream because I don't think those guys are out there at a price tag we were willing to pay. I wonder if more people don't feel like we maybe missed an opportunity at draft debt or at trade deadline.
I don't really think there's a whole lot of question about that. You know, again, we talked about this in the prior show, and I agree with this X factor 100%. You're showing faith in your group, and look what it got you so far. You've created no separation. You're losing games you should have won. You're losing games that you were winning. And you're seeing some of the frustration, like, you know, the Huberdeau play against Colorado. There's just so many things they could have done. Didn't have to be a lot, but I mean, even if he kind of, you know, sold off a couple pieces to acquire some draft capital, or again, and apparently he expressed a clear willingness to do this, and maybe Murray Edwards felt differently, but like to take on some salary to facilitate another trade and get a pick that way, or a prospect, like. This group, and this is the problem, because the media is also pushing this narrative. If they understood how bad this team is, and how they would better understand how good Dustin Wolf is, and the Calder Trophy would already be awarded to him. But the problem is, and Greg Millen's not the only one, and I understand, because when you watch them and you think, oh, this is a hardworking team, or so-and-so, you know, potted, like Coronado's got 16 goals or whatever, it's like, yeah, but they're really, really, really bad. Night in, night out, they're not a good hockey team. And if everybody just accepted this, and if Conroy accepted it, he wouldn't just go say, "Oh, we believe in this group." It would have been more of, "Yeah, we believe in the group, but you know, we're talking about a really hot market, and you know, we're going to move some pieces because we're getting a crazy good return on them."
Yes.
But again, everybody thinks that they're not a bad hockey team, and it's like, you know as well as I do, like, we want to be watching playoff hockey.
I want us to go on a 6-game run here. I want you to bring luck to Toronto tonight, and I want Monday night to be a Flames win and 2 points. But the road doesn't get any easier. And we talk about these road trips, and this one coming up is our last trip out east, and it's not an easy one. It's a Monday Toronto. It's a Tuesday Madison Square Garden with the Rangers. It's a Thursday with the Devils and a Saturday day game with the Islanders. This team's got 17 games left. 9 of them are against playoff teams. That's not an easy schedule, and these 4 games out east are going to be rough.
Yeah, and more people have been saying if the Flames make the playoffs, which based on what you just said is, and based on how they played, is going to be very, very difficult. It's entirely possible and borderline likely that Dustin Wolf would steal the series. He is that good. Like, and then it's also it's hard to how would I word that? It's hard to truly understand how much it matters when guys like Coleman and Kadri, guys that have won cups and are proven playoff performers, step up, and you have a hot goalie. That's what makes the possibility to make the playoffs so exciting. The crappy part is the team's not good enough to get there without Wolf standing on his head, and Vladar as well with whatever games he plays. So,
well, we're gonna need Connor Zary to come back on a heater. We're gonna need to see a Farabee like he was against Dallas. We're gonna need to see Morgan Frost pot a couple goals. We're gonna need to see Sharon Govich raised from the dead. And I mean, we're going to need this. And then all this has to happen at one time. And then, you know what? Then we're a decent team, right? I mean, we have some pieces, right? We just have some holes to fill. And we talked about those earlier in the show. And that's going to take some time. But I think as a whole, we're moving in the right direction. I just think that maybe we need to push the gas a little bit on that.
So here's a fun question. And it's not going to happen, but it's a fun one I want to ask you. Yegor Sharangovich scored 30 goals last year. He's been abysmal, as we talked about.
Yep.
If the team waived him and he got claimed and he went somewhere else and scored 30 goals next year, would that bother you?
No, I think haven't we went through this before? Like, you can control players when they go to other markets, right? My only concern is, are we offensively inept because of our structure, or are we offensively inept because our players aren't very good?
I used to think it is because our players weren't very good. And now I think it's a mix, but I more so believe it's also a structure issue because Uyghur had a huge year last year, for example, offensively. Anderson hasn't really had one since, Gaudreau, Lindholm, Tkachuk line. So it's a difficult one to answer because you see these guys play. You see like what Farabee did in that Dallas goal. You see what Frost can do with his speed. It's like we have good pieces, and again, none of them are elite. But to score this little for when you have Kadri, Huberdeau, Coronado, Sharangovich, Coleman was never going to score 30 again, but still has some skill. Frost, Farabee, Zary. You should have 3 players with 60-plus points, or we're not going to have that.
No, I know, and that's what I'm saying. Like I think it's a combination of both. I do agree, but it's a little concerning.
Very much so. Ultimately, I guess we'll find out more into the next coach because it's very unlikely, as with most teams, that any coach survives the rebuild and gets the point of coaching them as a competitive team. And again, I don't dislike Huska, but I kind of wish, because he's such a personable guy, that I could talk with him one-on-one and be like, dude, like, again, armchair coaching. I'm not the coach. I don't have the experience you have. I've only ever played hockey at a meaningless level, as I continue to do today. But help me, make it make sense. The Kevin Rooney thing, always rolling him out, and he's getting dummied every time he's in the ice. You keep trying the same lines, and they're not scoring. The power play configuration. The power play's been better, yes, granted, but the shootout and overtime stuff. Like, what are you doing?
I want to know. I want a question. I want to say to him, like, can you explain to me how Jake Bean and Miramanov sound like a pairing that's going to be able to hold up against the Colorado Avalanche?
Well, and why would you not go to Craig Conroy and say, listen, this team needs a spark. It's some position or the other. Obviously, the deadline's passed. It has to be done internally. Get me somebody who's impressed the coaching staff of the Wranglers.
Yes.
I'll find a way to work them into the lineup. And I keep coming back to Jeremy Poirier because the reason you mentioned, he's getting long in the tooth to have never played an NHL game. He's a Memorial Cup winner.
I believe his contract is done at the end of this year. Like, we need to know.
Yep.
We need to know what we got here.
Well,
I mean,
why would he resign on a team that's never given him a chance?
why would I mean? Is he just a good AHL player, or is he? I mean, I don't know. But we need to figure it out sooner rather than later.
Yep, and for him, like the draft loyalty, like or in Gaudreau's case, when he got drafted and signed with Calgary, my understanding has always been he largely signed with him because they took a chance on him. You know, they took the time to fly in, meet with him, all those different things. The drafted, like you drafted me loyalty, has a statute of limitations on it. Jeremy Poirier should no longer care that the Flames drafted and signed him because it's like, okay, I've played well enough year over year to have earned a cup of coffee in the NHL, and he can't get it, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know. One thing before we go, this week the NHL talked about some changes coming for the future, and Pierre LeBrun reported it, and a bunch of other guys did too. But the NHL and the NHLP are in discussions about a potential 84-game season with a shortened preseason. Your thoughts on that quickly?
I'm okay with a shortened preseason. And actually, my buddy Chris and I talked about this yesterday. Like, he watches spring training in ball, and I watch preseason NHL hockey for the same reason. I don't want to see the veterans play.
No, I want to see my prospects.
And guys like Sam Honzek, I want to see the guy that's going to earn a spot on the roster for, 9 games or whatever, or shows enough to say he should be the first one recalled, or man, he's going to be good. I do find the preseason too long. To be honest, the regular season it goes too far. I don't by the time, unless the Flames are in it, by the time the Stanley Cup's awarded in June, it's like we're a month into summer. I'm kind of over this.
Me too.
I'd like the playoffs to be done by mid-May.
Yep. I'd like to start September 1.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I mean, the way it is now, it's like, and I don't think I'm the only one that feels this way. I mean, by the end of it, it's like, man, it's like I want to be on the back deck having a beer or at the beach or something. Like, I'm gonna be watching the Stanley Cup final. Like, this is just stupid.
Yeah.
And the ice is shitty in every rink in the league by June. Like,
getting worse.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's Florida or Edmonton. Like, so I don't. So, and the other thing too is like these guys play enough games. It's a very physically, it's one of the most taxing sports you can play. I don't think we need to go more than 82 games either.
I'm fine with 82. I want to start in September. I want to be done in May. Yeah, me and you are on the same page with that. Teams want more divisional and rival games. Do you as a fan want that? And they're talking about not having a game in every arena every year. I don't know how you feel. I'm totally good with this. I'm all for more rivalry games. I think what you should do is you should rotate divisions in the opposite conference, and like one year we go to the Atlantic, and the next year we go to the Pacific, and then the next year we go to the Atlantic, or not the Pacific but the Metro. I don't know that we need to go to Washington every year. I
enjoy it just because you get to see how they stack up against another team. Also, as a frequently traveling Flames fan, it does matter to me to going to the game in Toronto. I've been to a game in Washington. I've been to a game in Columbus. So there's a happy medium, though, again, as there is in all things. I don't remember 10 years ago, we played the Oilers 8 or 10 times, but didn't play Tampa Bay, maybe.
Yeah.
That was just stupid. That was just but at that point, you're not building a rivalry. You're just holy man, these guys are sick of playing each other.
But then Edmonton, last year, I think we played them only 3 times. I want to play Edmonton 4 or 5.
Yeah, and I think that's the happy medium we're looking for.
And I want to play Vancouver 4 or 5.
Yeah. And I also think that the league, and it's difficult because all the different arena schedules and all that kind of stuff, but I think the league could do a better job in terms of how they schedule some of this stuff. Because you get teams that get a huge break. You get a team that gets 3 games and 4 nights out east and has to come back home, play a Western team. We're wearing a lot of these teams out, and I don't think it's entirely necessary. I think they can make the schedule more palatable for every team, and then there's less excuse, like the one we've talked about so many times about, they're tired, and they get in they got in at 6 a.m., they got in at 1 a.m. It's holy, okay, you're pro athletes, you sign up for this life, you got to get up and go. I understand it's difficult. I'm not saying I could do it. God knows I couldn't, but it comes to the territory. So I think it's incumbent upon the league to make it easier for all of their teams, such that we don't have one team with his excuse, the other one, fresh as a daisy, right?
Yeah. The last thing the NHL talked about was getting rid of the All-Star game completely. Now, they wouldn't be able to do that next year because they've already booked it with the New York Islanders and stuff like that. But, man, I'm all for that. I'd love to see them nix that thing. And
name your All-Star teams, make an alkali. But, I mean, other than it being a week off, or most of a week, I should say, for the players, which I think is good, which they can do anyway. It's never done. I mean, apart from it could be a cool vacation, I guess, for the families of the players. It's I've always had a hard time watching it.
Yeah,
because it's just so meaningless, right?
Oh, it's horrible hockey.
Yeah.
All right, Kyle, it's time for you to go to Toronto. It's time for you to go and make sure that you continue your winning tradition. One question I have as we go out, you know that Jack Roslovic had to switch his number in Carolina. Did you hear
switch
this?
It back. Yeah.
Yeah, and he got a Rolex for switching it. Do you give the Rolex back or do you?
Absolutely not. No, you keep it. He held up his end of the bargain. It's not his fault. Rand didn't want to stay there.
I just wanted to check what you would do.
Jack Roslovic got his cake and he's eating it too. I think it's fantastic.
That is awesome. He gives his number up for a couple weeks. Yeah.
Now, Mike Gold had mentioned this, and I want to throw this out there, as part of the Game Worn jersey community. If there's a 98 Roslovic jersey, it's going to be one of the rarest ones out there. But because it was such a brief period of time, if the stitching works, it's possible they would just take that 8 off and put the 6 back on. So the jersey may not even technically exist. But it may exist in that you can see the stitch marks where the 8 was. And this is really intricate, but if you look at like a lot of Game Worn jerseys, like the A's been removed or whatever, like Johnny Gaudreau's last Flames jersey had an A on it and that was removed afterwards, right? And I don't know why, but that Roslovic jersey, if it does exist, will catch a very pretty penny because that is the most unique of jersey circumstances.
Ooh.
Speaking of which, I gotta go figure out which Lewis jersey to pack because I got like 7 of them to choose from.
Well, you better bring one of the good ones. But
exactly.
Oh, and also don't forget, we're marathon show today. Don't forget, make sure you get on our webpage or social media. We've been posting for Kyle's Hockey Heroes fundraiser. Make sure you get on there, help him out. We're just about got you through level 1, right? And on to level 2, and for a great cause, and we want to see Kyle play hockey against Mark Giordano and all those guys. So,
hopefully with Mark Giordano, but
no kidding.
Yeah, thanks again for all the support. And when that weekend does roll around, I'll be posting a ton of content. I mean, so far there's Alexei Kovalev, Mark Giordano, Marty Turco, Brian Scriblin, Matthew Barnaby, Ryan Kessler, Shane Corson, I believe. Like just a handful of guys, just to name a few. But there's more at it all the time. So take a look at the page and see who else is coming.
And the most important thing, it is for the Heart and Stroke Foundation in New Brunswick. So
absolutely,
super great cause, and we want to help them out as much. And today, going out a new band that we haven't played on the show before, Searching for Scarlet. They are a new band you're going to be hearing on the intros and outros. Some real good guys. Enjoy it. They are on Apple, iTunes, and on Spotify. So check them out. Searching for Scarlet. Have a good week, Flames fans. Have fun in Toronto, Kyle. And we're back.
I will.
Talking Flames hockey. We'll see you next week, Flames fans.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to Flames Unfiltered with Brad Burud and Kyle Lewis, your source for unfiltered Calgary Flames hockey talk. Keep it locked on flamesunfiltered.ca. Subscribe where you get all your podcasts to never miss an episode. Flames hockey talk every week, presented by Inside Edge Hockey Media Group.